Hi, my name is Adrian Taffinder and I am a subconscious surgeon. Now I want to talk to you today about self-sabotage. Everybody does it. Nobody's immune to it. But we all have different levels of how much we sabotage ourselves. And, in reality, life is about, you've probably heard the term continual professional development. Well, the CPD. Well, I think there should be continual personal development, because we have this kind of emotional matrix which is embedded into us throughout our kind of experience in our life. A predominant amount of it embedded into our brains when we were as young as, between 2 and 7 years old. In fact, about 80% of our emotional programming and our expectations, how we view the world, is pretty much established by 7. It was Aristotle that said, show me a boy of 7 and I'll show you the man. And what he's saying by that is pretty much his, emotions and personality are formed at that point. Now, unless you go through some very interesting and very deep processes, the chances are these patterns will not only be embedded for life and impact every area of your life, but you probably won't even know they're there. And this is the kind of little idiosyncrasies that people point out. They'll say, oh, you're just like your mum when you say that, or you're just like your dad when you say that. And you'll get, you'll see them like, no, I'm not like my dad, I'm not like my mum. But they'll do it again and they'll notice it and they'll go, oh God, my mum always, oh God, I am, aren't I? And then suddenly that penny drops, right? And you suddenly realize that, you know what, I am. Now, I trace emotions back to childhood through a process called psychokinesiology. It's basically muscle testing. It tests your parasympathetic nervous system against language, right, and imagery. Now, if you imagine a certain situation, or you say a certain statement, like a lie detector, when in essence it is a lie detector, when you tell that lie, even if actually consciously you don't believe, whether you believe it's a lie or not, you may consciously think it's the truth, but your deep subconscious knows what the truth is. There's a lot of mechanisms there, and I'm not going to get into them on this video. You can check out some of my other videos about the neurochemistry and the heart field and how we're connected and how we sense things and how we process our environment. It's quite a fascinating thing. But when we're talking about limiting beliefs, they manifest themselves in our lives in many, many different ways. So, give you an example. Let's say you're in business and you need to go out and get business. So you go out and you go networking, and you go to a breakfast networking meeting, and you sit down and you feel kind of like you can't eat, because at some point soon you've got to stand up in front of 10, 20, 30, 40 people, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and why everybody should buy from you. Now, if you've got all this internal turmoil, which is making you, feel nauseous, or making you kind of throat close up, or making you nervous and anxious, and your heart pump and you start to sweat, and all these physiological responses, that is quite simply a symptom of a limiting belief, right? You have a belief system which doesn't support that situation. And that applies to every area of your life. It doesn't have to be a networking meeting. It could be just going out and socializing. It could be meeting some parents, some family, neighbors, friends. If you're getting apprehensive and you're getting anxious, and sometimes you know why, but sometimes you're unsure why, quite simply, that situation is kind of letting you know of an emotional trigger that's programmed into your system. The simple fact is that if you've got that response pattern programmed into your system, well, just like any program, it can be changed. It can be removed and replaced. So, another kind of sign of a limiting belief is if you go somewhere to do something with a particular intention, and you forget, say, half of what you've got to say. You come out afterwards and you think, oh, I forgot to mention this. Oh, I forgot to mention that. And you kind of see it, and you mess up your words, and you do something wrong, or you knock your drink over, and spill it all over the desk in front of the person you're interviewing, or whatever that might be. And these are, when you're not normally clumsy, but in a situation you become clumsy, what you have is an emotional belief system which makes you nervous, makes you scared, makes you less spatially aware in that predicament, because your mind's preoccupied with this fear response, this desire to run away. So all areas of our lives can be impacted like this. So it's like relationships. If you have got a trust issue with your partner, and well, let's say they've never actually given you grounds to have a trust issue, then again, you've got a limiting belief over relationships, over trust. It's just an automatic response pattern. You've been programmed to think men or women or whatever can't be trusted, right? Maybe you've had a bad experience previously, and basically what that bad experience has done is it's embedded an emotional pattern that it's always going to be like this, yeah? And if there's situations, the classic, absolutely burning example of a limiting belief, something that is destroying your life, and I know that sounds a bit kind of over dramatic, but actually when you analyze it and you look at all the areas of your life which you limit yourself, you shrink yourself down, you don't take action, you kind of feel nervous, you kind of get scared and shy out of things, whatever that might be, that's quite simply a limiting belief. It's a programmed emotional pattern which is stopping you from doing what you're doing, being happy, being safe, feeling secure, feeling confident. Yeah? And if any of those things are missing from your life, which make you feel happy, and you're not going to tackle them, that's the limiting belief holding on to the limiting belief, right? That is self-sabotage at its utmost, and it's quite funny because I see quite often people that come to me, right? And we have a little consultation, and we find out, and I literally describe word for word the year it happened, who caused it, the language behind it, and they're like, yeah, that's what happened, this, that, and the other. And then they were like, oh God, yeah, I need to sort this out. And then they say, right, I'll come back to you. And then they never do. And they make an excuse. Oh, I got busy with work. Oh, it's tight with money this month. Oh, this, oh, that. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Just let me do this and let me get that and let me do this. And it never happens. And what it is that your deep subconscious mind, it works in a particular way. And it's just determined to keep you exactly where you are. I did a video about self-sabotage just a couple of days ago, and it talked about the dog on the veranda, moaning and groaning. And, if you haven't seen it, go and have a quick watch. I won't go into the story now. But what it is that as humans, what we do is we get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? We have these problems, we have these reoccurring issues, we keep having bad relationships, we have this aching shoulder, we have this bad hip, we have these physical ailments, we have a continuous cold, we have stress at work. It's the same thing over and over again, but what we do is what we call psychological accounting. So psychological accounting is when you justify your situation. And you kind of pass it off as something that, well, it's just the way I am. Well, if we're born with no particular emotional blueprint, and we develop that in life, well, it's not how you are. It's how somebody else was, and you viewed it, and in that moment chose to adopt it. And it's because when we're especially between the ages of 2 and 7, we're in this state which they call Theta brainwave state. Now, Theta brainwave state is a meditative state. It's a hypnotic state. It's a dream state we're incredibly susceptible to suggestion. And this is why hypnotists are able to get people to do things, because they bring them down into this kind of resonant frequency of susceptibility and then put suggestions in that changes behaviour. Now we can use that to our advantage. This is what meditation's all about. But sometimes the belief systems are so ingrained, so just programmed into your neural pathways, that affirmations, repeating, reading books, self-development, all that kind of stuff won't work. It just cannot penetrate that kind of immovable wall, right, of fear. And that's what it is. It is the amygdala, right? And it's that part of the brain which deals with self-preservation, with survival, right? And it hasn't evolved as quick as we have. It's still stuck back a couple of thousand years ago when we were hunter-gatherers, when our risk was being eaten by some kind of animal as prey. We're not in that situation anymore, but what that kind of limbic system, what's in control of that self-preservation mechanism, what it does is it looks for alternative danger, right? So if you were 5 years old and you went into a group of people to try and make friends, and none of them let you in, and you felt excluded, and they kind of were like, what are you doing? Or, oh, go away, smelly, something like that, right? Kids are cruel, yeah. And you would then think, right, okay, approaching people's dangerous, it's embarrassing. So that feeling of rejection and feeling of embarrassment, you emotionally link with going to groups of people and attempting to speak and meet them. And that is then what translates later in life as social anxiety. Yeah? When, you can't go to parties because you feel really awkward. Yeah? You become incredibly self-aware about your clothes, about your looks, about your aesthetics, because at the end of the day, they didn't get to know you. So it must be something about how you look, the reason why you were rejected. All of these things just embed. And it is completely untrue. It was just true for that isolated situation. And the thing is, that isolated situation then gets imprinted and projected on the rest of our lives. And we spend all our lives with situations we do not like, we do not want, yet we won't deal with them. And that is only because it's got nothing to do with affordability. It's got nothing to do with finding the time. Because I'm sure there's plenty of things in your life that you find the time and the money for, which quite potentially aren't as necessary as improving your happiness. You probably even do some of these things to make you happy. A lot of people spend loads of money on alcohol because it drowns their sorrows. It's a depressant, right? It is pure self-sabotage if you're using that as a crux to be happy, because it ends up making you more unhappy. There's all sorts of ways we just choose to suffer and not deal with it. And what I'm telling you is there is an alternative. Those response patterns, those emotions, those feelings, that perspective, that way of viewing the world can be changed really quickly. It can be just switched off in an instant, right? There are many new tools. I've had clients come to me which have had bad shoulder pain. I wrote a blog about it, the psychosomatic. Is your body, hurting you? I've forgotten the title. I don't think that was the title. I might put it subtitles on the bottom of this, or just go onto my LinkedIn. But, is your body trying to tell you something? Your body talks to you all the time. This is what I kind of use because we store emotions in the body. And if you've got a physical ailment, your hips are about feeling supported. Your legs are about moving forward. Your knees are about being flexible. Your shoulders are about bearing responsibility. Your right shoulder is about financial. Your left shoulder is about family. Your throat is about speaking your truth. There's all sorts of different things. Skin complaints are usually being comfortable in your own skin. Having good self-worth about your aesthetics, about how you look. So all of these symptoms are basically your body screaming out, I've got a limiting belief, I'm not happy, I'm stressed, I've got a problem, please, 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 Pay attention to me because I'm trying to tell you something. But we don't realise that's the case. It's just not common knowledge that your body is emotional. Well, we know it's emotional, but quite often, we don't link it with a lot of disease. And, studies have shown about 80 to 90% of disease is emotionally related. It's what they call psychosomatic. Psycho, the mind, soma, the body. So the mind massively affects the body. And this is, where the placebo effect comes into play. Yeah? The placebo effect, and this is fascinating. There's some really great TED Talks about this. In fact, what I'll do is I'll get some of the links and put them on the notes below. So you can check some of these TED Talks out, which go into detail about, cases of cancer which have gone into full remission when being given an actual placebo drug. Just think about that for a moment, right? Cancer, one of the most feared diseases on this planet at the moment. One of them. Yeah, there are a few more, I know. But it is one of them. And it is one of the most prevalent. About 1 in 3 people apparently is going to contract cancer. Now, don't even get me started about the origins of cancer and the chemicals that we've got in our food and the pollution in our environment and all this kind of stuff. It's a man-made disease. Maybe so, but we've still got to deal with it. But the emotional side, is relevant. And it's quite amazing that, cancer really is an environmental thing. Well, any emotion that you have, any disease that you have is an environmental thing. And we know it is emotionally related. Our body has the ability to heal itself, heal its own emotions. But just like anything, if you've got 2 legs, 2 arms, you could go and build a house, right? You could make the most fanciest bit of furniture, right? You could paint a masterpiece. But to be able to do those things, you're not just going to be able to do them naturally. It's not going to be an innate skill. You're not going to be able to just say, right, I'm going to build my own house, grab a few bits, mix up a bit of gobbo, and there you go, boom, it's done. Looking perfect and straight. No, I've built a barbecue, and oh my God, if you'd have seen the barbecue, it looked like 2 leaning towers of Pisa, like kind of, it really was, it bowed in the middle. I brought it back at the top to make the tray work. And that was just my level of skill, because I'd never done it before, right? And at the time, I wasn't going to pay someone to do it. But if you think about it, look at the result I got. It was poor, it was substandard. Okay, it was functional, right? And all that, but at the end of the day, it could have been a hell of a lot better. So this is a bit like self-development, right? The books are great, the courses are great, the tools are great, but sometimes it needs an external party, a third person, to be able to kind of view it from a different perspective. Because even when you read the books and learn the kind of techniques, you're still kind of coming from your own perspective. Some of them are really good at reframing it. I'm not saying that, there's no use whatsoever. They're phenomenal amounts of use. And I would suggest that you read and learn and do as much as you can to understand these emotional muscles, these things that we've got to train and kind of strengthen. But also, by the same token, some of the best investment that I've ever made in my life is paying somebody on a one-to-one basis to focus, be fully present with me, with my needs and my issues, and have the right skills to analyze them in such a way that I can view it in a way that I have never considered it before. I mean, even now, with my huge skill set, my ability to muscle test and to read people's subconscious minds at such a phenomenally high detail level, sometimes turning that back on yourself, you still miss things. And I feel that I'm really good. I've got loads of subconscious surgery sessions that I've videoed, I've documented. I'm actually going to be using in my training program to train people of how to do subconscious surgery, because I talk through the process and how I found it and what we do once we find it and how to sculpt the language, right? Which is in essence what subconscious surgery is sculpting the inner language to reflect what you're saying internally, and then you're using a pattern interrupt to remove the stress from that language so it doesn't bother you again. So when you're placed into that situation, that trigger, that self-limiting belief, that self-sabotage, yeah, that trigger is no longer triggered. It's not activated. You don't get the dump of neural chemicals associated with a neural response of fight or flight. Yeah, it's just stress. It's the body thinking it's going to die, so it dumps a load of chemicals in its body to save its life, to give it extra strength and extra power, right? But if you're kind of worried about your kids' grades, or you're worried about, paying the bills at the end of the month, or your credit card bill, or, whether your partner's kind of maybe cheating on you and all this kind of stuff, well, the fight or flight system was only ever designed for short durations. Yeah? Danger, something's going to kill me, I'm going to run that way, like the clappers, right? It's high intensity, short duration, right? The problem with stress these days is it's prolonged. So your body is actually in a state where it's decided that processing your food and waste is secondary to your needs. Your primary needs is strength and to get the hell out of there. Yeah, that fight or flight, right? It's all external, not internal, which means that toxins build up in your body. You don't get all the nutrients from your food. That means your gut, you have stomach problems, digestive problems, which is IBS, indigestion, ulcers, all this kind of stuff, which is associated with stress. Yeah? And it's because of the chemicals and how it changes your body's function. So if you have anything in your life which is causing you anxiety and stress, and it's causing you to get hot and sweaty, it's causing you to not sleep, it's causing you to just constantly ruminate over it and think about it and kind of panic, then you've got a limiting belief, right? The situation you are in doesn't actually have to trigger you, right? The thing is also, one classic bit of self-sabotage is because of social conditioning and societal conditioning, it is almost expected for you, if you're in a difficult situation, to be stressed, right? It's like me, I've been in some incredibly challenging situations and people go, why aren't you stressed? You should be stressed. You've had a big problem, your girlfriend's left you, why aren't you stressed? Why are you even happier than you were before? It doesn't make sense, it's mental. But it's just that I've got a different perspective, right? I know things have to leave to be replaced with something better. Yeah? One of the phrases that I love is you've got to give up the good to get the great. Well, I kind of extended it because you've got to give up the great to get the bloody amazing. And you've got to give up the bloody amazing to get the absolutely spectacular. So if something leaves me, if a problem happens, I break something, whatever happens, I get excited because I know that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, this higher purpose, this thing that kind of does these weird things in the background, is preparing to give me something even better. Now the thing is Henry Ford, little phrase, and I'll kind of translate it for this. He says, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right. And the way to translate it to this is if something happens and you think something bad's going to happen or you think something good's going to happen, you're probably right. And that is all down to what they call the reticular activating system, right? It's a part of the brain, it works like Google, and what it does is it searches all this information that's coming into your body. 65 gigabytes of data per second just into your eyes alone, yeah? That's a hell of a lot of resolution and information, right? You're picking up things that you don't realise are there in your peripherals, right? You've got your ears, which take on a vast amount of data, your skin, your senses, and then we've got this kind of your heart field and all this mirror neurons, and we assimilate data in an incredibly powerful way. But our conscious mind can only deal with 40 bits per second. That's it, 40. Yeah, there's about 40 million going on in the background. So we are given what we call awareness patterns, and those awareness patterns basically work on a thing called confirmation bias. So basically all your mind wants to do is like Google, it wants to give you exactly what you asked for. right? But it doesn't rationalize your question, right? If you think, I don't want debt, right? If you put in YouTube, I don't want stress, you get 300 and odd million pages on stress. It doesn't see the I don't want. And your brain's exactly the same. So if you're constantly not wanting stuff and you're constantly seeing it in your life, which means and confirms that it's something you don't want, so you want to reject it even more, and that causes you stress, but then you see it again, which stresses you more, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Quite simply, what your mind is doing is seeking proof of your beliefs, so it proves that you should believe it. It's mental, isn't it? Right? And that really is mental health. A lot of people associate mental health with people that are in very debilitating situations. But day-to-day worry is a mental health issue because you're putting your body through a stress that it doesn't need to endure. And if you have the opportunity to go through a process and have it removed, and you don't, well, what does that say? What does it say? It says to you, I don't want to be happy. Yeah? I've convinced myself I'm kind of happy where I am. There's all this crap that I know that I want to get rid of, but it's just how I am. It's how I've always been. It don't work. It's a load of rubbish. Won't help me. It's too much money. I'm not worth it. Don't spend it on me. Spend it on the kids. The thing is your happiness impacts everybody around you. So if you're unhappy, if you're always stressed and you're always anxious, just imagine what it does to your loved ones. Your husband, your wife, your kids. They'll be constantly concerned. In reality, you owe it to your family to get the help you need. Especially if they're kind of rooting for you to do it and they recognize it. That's their polite way of saying, look, you know, it's kind of stressing us out as well, you know, and we'd like to see you happy because we'd like to be happy too. And if you're happy, we're happy, and we're happy, you're happy, everybody's happy. Is that such a bad thing to have? So, the ultimate self-sabotage, the ultimate limiting belief, is when you have an opportunity to fix a problem and you don't take it. Especially if there's no risk. And that's what I offer. I offer a completely risk-free way of checking it out. I give a full money-back guarantee. And because I can test it, and I can know whether it's actually happened, I won't let you go until we've got the actual result that you want, right? And believe me, if you look at all my testimonials, and if you want to talk to any of my clients, they'll reiterate it is a tangible difference after each session. There's a physical response. You feel different, right? And it's so much quicker, and we don't have to talk about it. You don't really even need to know what the cause of it is, right? If you haven't got a clue where it came from, why it's there, you just know that you feel like this and you don't want it, I can switch it off. If I can't, I'm not going to take your money. So here's an opportunity for you now to counteract the ultimate self-sabotage. If you have got an area of your life that you want to change, just get in contact with me. I will offer a free consultation. We can identify what they are and whether it is something that I can tackle. Yeah, and I will test my ability to do so. And there has been occasions where this particular ailment, this physical problem or emotion is something that it wasn't suitable for me to be that person to move on. And I've been in contact with a few people that specialize in different areas. But if I tell you, and I can test on a score of 1 to 10, how much benefit I will get, and if I say, right, we can remove 60% of those feelings and emotions and give you a 60% improvement, and you think, well, if I can improve that by 60% for just that money, it's a bargain, then there you go, and I'll guarantee that we will get you there and you will feel that much. It could be 100%. We could remove it all. It could even alleviate some physical symptoms on a regular basis. My clients, who sometimes come to me for the physical symptoms, but also sometimes come to me for other issues, and then I'll do the testing and say, oh right, I've got this in your hip, this is about you don't feel supported. And they'll go, oh God, yeah, my son, my husband, my wife, whatever, I've got this problem, blah, 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 but God, yeah, my lower back's been killing me for ages, right? And we do the processing and we get rid of it. And then the next time we speak, it's like, do you know what? I can stand up straight. My hip's all right. Again, read my blog about the psychosomatic effect. I had a frozen cervicaliac for many, many years. And it was only when I learned this technique and developed it to such a point where I removed the emotion that was causing it, and it went. Yeah? And I didn't mention this in the blog, but I talked about a hemorrhoid. Yeah? And that was me. I had, I'm sorry, this might be a little bit present. If you're of a sensitive nature, pause it and everything, just contact me now. But it's quite amusing. But quite simply, I developed this hemorrhoid. Okay, and it was quite bulbous and painful. And I've been using the normal topical treatments and everything like that for a few weeks, and it just wasn't shifting. And I'd kind of procrastinated about doing a subconscious surgery session just because I was doing a bit of self-sabotage. I'll put my hands up. Nobody is actually immune. And it was just some stresses in my relationship, a few challenges I was going through, there was in business, and I used the excuse that I was just too busy to do it, right? Well, I got that's probably the inappropriate phrase, got my finger around my bum, but you know what I mean? I kind of kicked myself up the bum or whatever it is and actually decided, right, I'm going to do a subconscious session on it. I actually video recorded it and everything like that. It's actually part of my training program. The hilarious thing is the emotions that it was related to was my girlfriend. It was actually the problems that we were having in the relationship, which amusingly means somebody can actually really be a pain in the arse. Now, I hope you don't mind my mild profanity, but this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with emotions, we're dealing with reality. Sometimes people come to me and they've got major guilt over things they've done in the past. It could be that they were interfered with by family, in a sexual way when they were younger. And there's a lot of emotions and trauma around that. Yeah. All of this can be dealt with. All of the guilt, the anger, the frustration, the anxiety, whatever it is that you've got eating away at you inside, we can remove it. We can delete it, and we can change your life phenomenally for the better. So stop procrastinating, stop self-sabotaging, stop making excuses, and click the email link below, get in contact, get in touch, and let me help you.